A young boy, Amakawa Haruto, is having to move away, leaving his best friend and childhood friend, Ayase Miharu, who's crying that he has to leave, but the girl hates never seeing him again. So the boy promises to come back to her, promising to run away with the girl and marry her, and the two of them agree. In the current day, Haruto is remembering this memory on the bus, with a small girl staring at him. Suddenly the bus loses control, stumbling on the train tracks, with all the passengers being hit by the oncoming train, with them all losing their lives. In a fantasy world, Haruto is now a young orphan, called Ryo, who wants to take revenge on the man that murdered his mother. Some bandits take the boy in, coming back with some food, with him not sharing any of it with the boy. The boy leaves to find his own food, eating some strange berries. He awakens more of his memories from the past, as the Japanese young man, called Haruto Amakawa, was also remembering his life with his mother after her death. A group of women in robes come to ask the boy some questions, with him looking for a young girl that's been kidnapped, but he doesn't know anything. Celia scans the area, looking for other magical responses. She can't find the person they're looking for, but sees that Ryo does have great potential to become a mage. The girl gives him some money, saying it's for the information. Ryo goes back to his house, where he's staying at, and he sees the bodies of the bandits. A hooded figure appears to do the same thing to the boy. Ryo sees a pink spirit, who tells him to use the magical power around him to grow stronger and to heighten up his senses. Ryo fights back, able to move very freely, defeating the man. He finds a young girl in a bag, with her asking for his help. He takes her outside, ready to take her home, and he runs back into the women in the cloaks. And before he can explain what happened, one girl keeps interrupting him before he can speak. After rescuing the Princess Flora from the kidnappers, Ryo is captured under suspicion of being one of their accomplices, with a blue-haired snake man looking on. He's later tortured by the knights in an attempt to get a false confession by him to avoid the embarrassment of them losing the princess, but he doesn't yield. Flora wakes up, exclaiming Ryo's innocence. Ryo is beaten nearly to death, but is soon cleared of all the charges. Celia heals his injuries with magic, properly introducing herself. Ryo is then granted an audience with the king. As a reward for rescuing Flora, he's accepted into the Royal Academy. Celia becomes his homeroom teacher, preparing him for his first day. At the school, he's shunned by most of his peers due to his peasant origins, with them all making fun of him because he can't read their language or do mathematics. Celia offers to teach him in a private lesson, but when he goes to her after school, he can tell that the girl has completely forgot about this. Inside, he sees how messy her room is, with the girl not being the most organized. Ryo remarks about how young she is to be a professor, with Celia agreeing, stating that she's only 12 years old, with under normal circumstances would have been in the same class as Ryo, but she skipped many grades and graduated very early. After some practice, Ryo is able to learn mathematics after he's able to understand the symbols. With Ryo remembering, Haruto was in college before all this. Soon later, the students begin their combat training, where the instructor recognizes Ryo's ability, asking the boy to come strike him, and the two of them begin swordsmanship. Ryo has a much different stance, picking it up from Haruto, who's had Kendo class. The stance is peculiar to the rest of the students, but the teacher loves his swordsmanship. The boy remembers his instructor in the past world, and is able to hold his own. Some students are interested in his tactics, but others simply mock him. When his instructor tells him he has the potential to be a knight, he turns it down. He turns this path down, shocking them all and angering some of them. Celia finds him in the library, where he's still studying. Afterwards, when he goes to the courtyard, Ryo has a flashback of Haruto's memory, where he sees Ayase Miharu back in high school, explaining after his parents' divorce, he had to move on, but he was lucky enough to see her again in high school, but the two never talking to each other, and after high school, she vanished. Ryo is angered, asking why does all this matter, deeming that he's Ryo now, not Haruto. After the exam, Ryo scores the highest, but other students can't accept it, calling him a cheater, since he beat the princess's test score. Alphonse won't let it go, but one of the princess's attendants tells him to stop, knowing he has no evidence to back up his claims. Celia also comes in to confirm that he did put in the work to get that grade. Celia and Ryo celebrate, but she's worried about Ryo being more isolated from his peers. The boy isn't worried though, seeing that he has her. Celia is embarrassed by this, but accepts that they're friends now. 5 years later, in combat training, the instructor calls Alphonse and Ryo, along with other students, to compete in their academy exhibition. Over the years, the only person that's been encouraging Ryo is his instructor, Celia. Celia reminds him that he can be scouted by the knights before he graduates. But Ryo plans to leave the academy and this country to find the country his mother wanted to visit, this being Yagamo. At the start of the ceremony, Ryo faces off against Charles Earlbond, being the one that tortured him when he was a child. The duel begins, with it being fierce with the knight not holding anything back. Ryo is able to overwhelm him though, winning the duel. The knight wants to fight him again, stating that he let his guard down. The captain of the guard is angered by his comment and tells him to accept his loss. That night, The man responsible for the princess's capture is having drinks with Charles, where Charles vents out his frustration with Rio, having lost. After the duel, some people warm up to Rio, but the boy receiving love letters from some of the young girls, who run off in embarrassment. Celia happens to see all this, while they're following him. Late at night, Celia is reviewing the plans of the students after they graduate, with Rio not writing anything down. In class, Celia is teaching a lesson on properly controlling their magical power. Two students want to do a more advanced lesson, while also singling out Rio for not being able to control his magic power. The other students hear his joke, laughing at this. Flora and Christina stay silent. Celia stops their remarks by having them demonstrate their own magical power. She does comment how they do know the basics, but still aren't ready to do more advanced spells, demonstrating her own, which is able to combine other spells. From this, Rio is able to show that he can't use any magical power like them, but he can copy something and mimic theirs, creating his own type of magical arts. After class, one student, Stuart Huguenot, is blushing over his teacher, complimenting her often, but when Rio tries to walk out, he stops to turn and look at him, angered that some female students are attracted to him, warning him not to be so cocky and not to seduce any of the students. Celia is angered, hearing this behavior from a noble, but the student is still voicing out his displeasure with the boy, that even she likes him just as much. Flora wants to get involved to try and defend Rio, but Christina tells him it's not their place to, stating that Rio understands. During a military exercise with his classmates, Alphonse takes control, directing the other students. Rio is tasked with carrying all their supplies, and to remain in the back. The group is attacked by goblins, with some students being very afraid. Alphonse directs them, with them able to defeat them. When they get to the cliff, their path has been changed, with spears being hurled at the students, with this coming from ogres. Alphonse tells the vanguards to use a shield to defend them all. Stuart doesn't block properly, becoming injured, hurling in pain, just from a scratch. While he's crying, he pushes the princess off the cliff, with no one else seeing this. Rio jumps off the cliff to go save her, using his spiritual arts to push her back with air. Princess Christine is able to defeat all the ogres. Rio thinks he would look suspicious if he just simply walks back up there, so he plans to leave. Stuart makes up a lie to have Rio falsely accused for attempting to kill the princess, with him now being forced to leave the capital. Christina knows this is a lie, but doesn't speak much of it. But Flora knows he didn't push her off. Christina calls for them to leave. Rio watches all this, deciding to leave. Flora wants them to stop to go search for him, but the others don't care to, and would rather leave, finding it even strange to even care of his safety. Just then, a Minotaur appears, defeating most of them, with the other students running away. The Minotaur catches up with Flora. Rio steps in to save her life. The battle is fierce, with the monster overpowering him, but he's able to move faster along its body to land a finishing blow. Rio flees to start his new life, and the man with blue hair looks on interested in the boy. As Celia is walking, she overhears Stuart, with the head of his family, discussing the military exercise, where the princess was pushed off the cliff by Stuart, and how they're going to blame Rio and also send someone to go end his life. In her study, Rio came back to say goodbye to her, with her informing him of the situation. Furious that it's come to this point, she wants him to stay to prove his innocence, but the boy sees that it is impossible, stating that either way, they're not going to treat him any better, nor would it be the end of it, deciding it's time for him to just simply leave, with him going under a new name, Haruto. The two of them promise to see each other again, and this is where we're going to leave off in today's video. As always, if you like today's video, here's another one just like it, so go check it out, as well as consider subscribing. I'll be uploading daily videos just like this one, so I'll see you next time.